Hi everyone, my name is Cecil and we're still here at the Caribbean Developers Conference in Punta Cana. Where we're talking to tons of developers and folks that are involved in the community, all learning and talking about technology. And I have my friend here who I just met like a couple of days ago.
Yes, hi.
She has some really cool things to talk to us about.
Yeah.
So why don't you just really quick introduce yourself and let folks know who you are and what do you do?
Hi everyone, my name is Leilah Squires and I'm a developer advocate at Bitrise. And I recently started as a developer advocate. Before that I was an iOS developer using Bitrise, so familiar with the CI/CD pipeline. And so recently I decided to get into developer advocacy, and it's been a world of adventure so far. I mean, I'm at this beautiful place.
That's very cool. So I'd love to know, how did you get started in technology in the beginning?
It's kind of a long story there, and it's not necessarily traditional in the sense. So I started as a customer service. The position, the title doesn't really matter because it's not a real title. But it was at a startup. At the time, I was the 30th person hired. I was the first person hired that wasn't someone that knew a person at the company. And it was really awesome, really fun days. And so slowly we started getting bigger and bigger. Our technology started getting more and more robust. And there was a need for data checks, is what they were calling them, which now looking back, it was data QA. And it wasn't something that I knew about. I didn't really know much about tech, didn't understand how to make an app, let alone become a iOS developer. And so I started doing that. They hired QA. She told me, hey, you're doing data QA. You can make a lot of money once you have that data QA title. Why don't you come on over to the engineering department and see if we can work something out. So then that turned into becoming just a manual tester, and then I started learning automation for our testing structure. And so learning Java, and I started working with our mobile team specifically, doing the UI tests. And that turned into me finding bugs, and then being only a team of about 4, they were like, we don't have time to fix these little bugs. Can you do it?
Yeah.
Okay, I know exactly where the bug is in the code, so all right, sure. So then I started fixing these small UI bugs, started really falling in love with iOS development, created some smaller apps on my own, and then I got the chance and the opportunity to interview in-house for an iOS position, and I got it, and I was doing that for almost a decade, half a decade, and then I went over to Bitrise.
You know what I love about that story is, like, you talking about how you started and someone giving you the opportunity and someone seeing something in you to be able to be like, oh, you know what, you'll be really good at this. And I really wish that all of us, like in the industry and even in other industries as well, would do that with more people.
Yes.
Because a lot of the times it's just giving folks the opportunity, right?
For sure.
And more than just, oh, okay, well, I just happen to know you because you're my friend, or we went to school together, or you're my cousin, uncle, sister, brother, or whatever. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just like, we just need folks to give us the opportunity.
Definitely.
And then, it's amazing what can happen after that.
Yeah. And that's actually some of like the biggest advice that I give to others who are looking to like break into tech. I always say I snuck through the back door of tech. But it's start someplace relatively small. Like, I think if you're trying to break in, a startup is a great place to go because you can learn about all the different positions available in tech, right? And then because it's a startup, they need bodies in positions, and if you can do something well, more than likely they'll allow you to do it. So it's a really great opportunity to be able to break in and figure out what you want to do. But that's getting the opportunity,
That's an interesting perspective. And I never thought about it that way, but you're right. Because I think about a startup, and it's probably a flatter structure than you go into like some big enterprise company. And so there's probably a lot of opportunity for you to just like dive in and like take control of something. Like show initiatives and do something.
At my previous company, I had, when I left, I had the most titles of an employee because I jumped from so many different work. Like, I just didn't know what I wanted to do, and I had the opportunity to figure it out there, and I was really blessed. And I am very thankful for the team that was there at Compass. I didn't mention the names. Compass Real Estate's
Did you?
Real estate tech company out in New York.
Awesome.
But yeah.
So we're at the Caribbean Developers Conference.
Yes, we are.
Are you a Caribbean native person?
Yes. Well, my father, he's Guyanese, and even though it is a part of South America, we're considered a part of the Caribbean because it's the only English.
We'll take you.
It's the only English-speaking country in South America, and we're pretty close to Trinidad, and so growing up, lived basically half my life going back and forth from Guyana to the States because my parents were separated.
Yeah.
And I got the opportunity to bounce around throughout the Caribbean, and I love it here. And the ultimate plan once I retire is to move to a Caribbean country and be able to sit on a beach somewhere. Yeah.
I feel that so much. You have no idea. I feel it. So one thing I always like to ask Caribbean people, do you feel like your culture affects the way that you work? Particularly like being a person in technology, like does it change the way that you look at how applications are built or the things that you're interested in working on?
That's a good question. It's an interesting question. I don't necessarily would say like technically it changes anything, but I would say it does affect how I interact with others, specifically like on like an international level, because I feel like because I was exposed to different cultures and like Caribbean cultures, there is an umbrella culture, but then within these individual countries, there's a culture of their own, right? And being able to adapt your communication style, the way that you just move in different spaces, I feel like that's what I learned from my Caribbean background is my father is not from the States, so he had to come and he had to operate and move in America the way Americans do, and that can be very difficult for immigrants, and it's a very common, I feel like, immigrant story, and I feel like that is what really helps me as far as definitely moving in these type of spaces is adapting to what I'm around, because how we speak, especially as developer advocates, you're either speaking to CTOs, you're speaking to leads, you're speaking to junior devs, so you have to be able to kind of change and alternate your wording and stuff like that. So definitely how I move in spaces is affected by my background.
Yeah, I feel like we have to be chameleons.
Yeah, for sure.
Know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because kind of like you said, like we move through this world, just not even just visiting countries, but like doing business with different folks, learning about different things, and just having to interact with so many different types of people and types of industries and types of projects. Like we have to be able to be dynamic like that and be able to move around. And not to say that other people aren't, but I think for us specifically, you have to be very dynamic from that. Because I feel like a lot of the things that are built and created, again, specifically talking about technology, a lot of that stuff doesn't originate where we come from, right?
Yeah.
Like no one from the Caribbean to this day has like created a programming language or started, a social network or any huge company. But we do use these things and we interact with these things. And for a lot of us that do work for these companies, we have to be able to move back and forth. But at the same time, like maintain like our cultural identity, while we're doing that too. And I think that's hugely important.
And I feel like in the recent years, it's gotten a lot better because people have the ability to be more themselves. And I know like the topic of like code switching and being able to become a little more like stiff, I'd say, when you're in these corporate settings. But nowadays, I feel like it's becoming more accepted that I can go in as my authentic self and still be listened to and taken professionally and be able to cultivate a better culture wherever I'm going, because it's a culture of acceptance and allowance.
And another thing I like to, particularly about this conference too, because a lot of folks would say, hey, you know what? The only thing they do in the Caribbean is party and hang out, and like that real work doesn't happen here, real business doesn't happen here. All these folks want to do is just go to the beach and chill out. You know what I mean? And I get it, right? I get the stigma, but also too, I take that to heart a little bit because as a person that I think I work pretty hard, and I'm sure you feel the same way about what you do as well. We take a lot of pride in the things that we do, both from a professional and from a cultural perspective. And so from that, that's why I love to come to spaces like this, so that we can highlight the things that we're all doing as a people together, right? Like whether it's in business or technology or tourism or whatever the case is, we can all work together and we can do it our own way. Again, we can be our authentic selves
and do it our own way.
And so now it's not like we're not fitting into a mold of what someone else thinks a technologist should look like or behave like or be like. You know what I mean? We do it our own way and we're successful doing it. And then now, hopefully, because I have a child and I think about my son and any future children being able to say, you know what, I can just do myself. I can be myself, and it's fine.
And still be successful.
And it's okay.
And we previously spoke about this, but the fact of being able to form what your workday even looks like, and not having that typical 9-to-5 schedule, and having to work like a dog and be on call late at night. That's not something that vibes for me personally, but also it doesn't work for the majority of people. So being able to really like carve out how we want to do tech is super important, and I think it's only going to get bigger and bigger, and I'm super excited about like the next generation of graduates and people coming into tech, because this normal 9-to-5 schedule, it's no longer going to fly. And it's not flying now because most people are remote, but it's just going to get even more and more flexible, and I am super excited about it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, again, like thinking about like our culture as Caribbean people, you know, family is hugely important, right? It's hugely important. I think about growing up and
like holidays, everything shuts down. Like everybody's with their family.
Right? Everything shuts down. Your house probably has like 50, 60, 70 people in there. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter like who's mad at who or who's upset at who or whatever the case is. We're all just kind of like enjoying the moment that we have together and spending time as you know, as family. So I love that very much. Tell me. So you said that you're at Bitrise.
Yes.
Like, what are some of the things you do at Bitrise? Like,
so I'm a developer advocate at Bitrise, but considering how small the company is, we do also still have some leeway about like what we do and what we can do. So I'm involved with content creation, so videos and tech writing and blogs and webinars, and it's all that traditional like kind of dev advocacy stuff, but then I'm also working a lot with our customer experience team now and getting them more involved with what Bitrise offers to their users, because they're hearing it from our users night and day about all the problems and all the issues, and speaking with them, and again, I'm only a recent hire, but speaking with them, I asked, well, you're hearing all these questions and all these common issues people are having. What are we doing to make it more of instead of a one-to-one touch, make it a one-to-many touch, right? And helping them now create content and working with them to kind of cultivate a more holistic approach to customer service, whereas instead of being able to just answer their question, point them to our documentation.
Sure.
Let them be self-helpers, because at the end of the day, the customers, they're developers. Sure. Developers are notorious. You know, like we know how to read documentation. We know how to go through things. So helping with that, and then also just community management is now something that I'm starting into, which I'm just like learning. Baby steps. But like that's what most of my career has been, is baby steps into something that I like, and then blossoming from there. So there's a ton of that, but as of late, it's just preparing for conferences, doing my decks, and then talking to other folks around the way. Yeah.
I think one of the things I like about your story is, you know, I think you're a great example of like non-traditional paths and just non-traditional, I want to say like careers in technology. Yeah. Right? Like, because everyone has like this template that you think, oh, a technology has to be this. It's funny, like I remember graduating college, and you know, walking on stage, and they're like, you know, Cecil Phillip, you know, computer science department, and everyone's like, you're a computer science major? I'm like, what do you think I was doing this whole time? They're like, we thought you were a business person. Like, you don't look like a computer science person. I'm like, well, what does a computer science person look like? Like, do you want me to be like scarfing pizza and Mountain Dew all day? Like, you know what I mean? I like other things. I like talking to people. I like going to the gym. I like sports. That doesn't mean like I can't be successful in technology.
For sure.
You know, and it also doesn't mean that I have to give up my culture to do it either, right? And so for me, again, like I love to talk to people to just show the perspective. I think perspective is very important for all of us. You know, and just being able to understand like the differences of things that make.
Yeah, and I find it important that I share my story a lot, because not just for the simple fact of people trying to imitate what I did in order to break in and get in, but also to show those hiring execs and those C-suite people that diversity isn't just about like color, gender, whatever. It's also about like identifying, hey, you have a customer service background, you've done training, and now you're in iOS development. Like it's a weird mix of things that I have. And I was struggling, to be quite honest, to figure out, taking my background, taking all the things that I was really, really good at, like, and then applying it to a role or a position. And I was just like, I guess I'll just be an iOS developer and this will be it. But then I was lucky enough to find developer advocacy and be like, oh, it kind of plugs in all the little things. And I was grateful that the manager that I spoke to here at Bitrise, he saw those little things that I have in all these different jobs that I've had in the past do apply to developer advocacy. So I didn't write any blogs. The minor blogs that I were doing were for Compass.
Yeah.
And the mini talks that I was doing for high school students looking to get into tech. So it wasn't like I had 1 million followers on Twitter. It wasn't like I was really big in the tech world, but they saw all the different things that I had in my past and were able to apply it. So I feel like that's what true diversity is all about, is being able to pinpoint everybody's background and see like, what are these little things that you can do that we can apply to your role, to this role, and being flexible so far. So it's not just like checking boxes on a job description. It's more organic, I feel like, and more. And it's better, I feel like, for the company, for the people involved, for the teams, because it's something that people are passionate about, because these are skills that they just honestly have in them. It's not something that they learned. It's just something that you
just
enjoy and you can do. Yeah. So that's my.
I think I know developer advocacy is a very community-focused job, right? Like, so there's obviously there's the technical, aptitude part of it, sure. But then there's also the community part of it, right? And I think being a big part of a community, like the authenticity is important, right? So kind of like what you're talking about, like when you have the passion and you actually have again, inside of you actually care about doing things for people, then it's not about OKRs or sprints and timelines and those types of things. It's about, okay, well, this is what this group of people needs from me. You know what I mean? What can I do to empower them to make good decisions, to give them advice, to kind of lead them down a path that I think would help them be successful, right? And I think that's kind of the position that we have to hold as developer advocates, right? Sure, we work for a company and the company pays us to do stuff, but also too, we have a responsibility for our community.
Absolutely.
To go do stuff.
Yes, every time I speak nowadays, I try not to use Bitrise anything in my presentations, because to me, Bitrise is great for certain groups, certain companies, certain organizations, and it's great if a junior dev or a single dev trying to make their app is using it. But I understand that it's not for everybody. It's a very robust system, and it has a lot of great benefits. But for some, it just doesn't work. So I could care less if you end up using a different platform. But the idea of what mobile DevOps and CI/CD pipeline, that's what I want to translate to everybody and make sure that they understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I know, obviously, you work a lot with the community. What are some of the other community programs that you're working with right now? What some of the things you're involved in?
Yeah. So before the pandemic, I was working with a small group who was going into New York state prisons, and working with incarcerated individuals to help learn code, to gain those skills for when they do get released, they're able to enter the job market. Primarily with tech, there aren't a ton of background checks usually, and people are a little bit more flexible in who and what they can hire. Obviously, maybe not like financial tech companies, but there's so many different options out there. And even so, if they have entrepreneurial skills, they can do their own thing and be self-starters. So that was something that I was involved in, but due to the pandemic, a lot of that got shut down. So there is now more of a push for private prisons and for state prisons to allow these programs back in. So unfortunately, the program that I was with is no longer available, they're not there. So I'm now going back into trying to figure out where I can place myself, and primarily looking for women who are incarcerated. I feel like people who are in the incarceration system, the prison system, they're often forgot about, and they're kind of like, oh, it's a lost cause. They're already, and I feel like a lot of tech now is focused on children, which is great, don't get me wrong, but there is a whole community of people who have all these great skills, not for nothing, if you're a drug dealer, you're an entrepreneur. It's your business person. It's an unfortunate situation, but it's your business person. So if you can apply those skills to tech, to something else, then you can be prosperous. And I'm hoping that now that the pandemic has really eased up and things are changing, to be able to get back into working and doing that type of stuff. Yeah.
That's amazing. And that sounds like a great program for a lot of folks to get involved in.
Yeah.
If for folks that are watching, if they wanted to, I don't know, maybe reach out to you or get involved in doing stuff like that, like, do you have any, I don't know, links that you could share, or like how can folks get involved in what you do?
I should have prepared. Best thing to do is just email me, leilahsw@gmail.
At Gmail. Okay.
Yeah, and
do you do like LinkedIn, Twitter?
Yeah, I have all that stuff, but I'm not very. I'm a bad developer advocate. I'm trying to be more active on social media. Specifically LinkedIn, it's Leela Simone. My Twitter is _Leela Simone. My Instagram is Leela Simone. So you find me, Leela Simone.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us.
This is great.
And thank you all for watching. Again, we're here at the Caribbean Developers Conference, and we just spoke to Leela. And so if you're interested in getting involved in like any of the different programs that she spoke about, make sure you reach out to her on social media, preferably by email.
Yeah.
And she'll help you get in contact with some great programs that you can get involved with.
Great.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks.